Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jermillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the people, colleagues in my network. I want to learn from these great leads, the books that they're reading that have impacted them, their work, their lives, their personal lives, everything, all those different worlds intermesh. So everything kind of affects everything else. So in this particular podcast, I cover three categories of books. The first category where they're sharing a book with me that I haven't read yet. Second category where we're both speaking to books that we have read, whether specifically for the episode or in our past lives. And then the third category is when I have authors and or publishers on to talk about the books that they have put out there in the world and that they want to share with this audience. In this particular episode, I do have an author and I do have a repeat guest. I'm glad that she came back to visit me again. Mboone Umbima is a EVP of brand strategy at David Rio Chai and Tea, and is a prominent leader, writer, public speaker, and coach with a versatile professional background spanning 15 years in banking, food service, philanthropy, and the beverage industry. Known for her innovative and bold ideas, Mboone has made significant strides in promoting diversity and inclusion, exemplified during her tenure at Compass Group, where she led the BNI Diversity and Inclusion Action Council. Her efforts earned her the Thompson Hospitality Leadership Award in 2014. In 2016, Mboone took a transformative sabbatical in Kenya, heading communications for the Equity Group Foundation. There, she worked on impactful socioeconomic programs focusing on education and financial inclusion for the underprivileged. At David Rio, she manages philanthropic initiatives, including collaborations with the International Fund for Animal Welfare and Wildlife Conservation. Mboone has also made her mark as an author, publishing two workbooks, Reflect and Renew, a New Year workbook, and Thank You, the 29-Day Gratitude Challenge. Her commitment to creating a positive impact is evident in her active participation on various influential boards, such as the McCall School of Business and the SHFM Foundation. Her passions extend to leadership impact and a deep love for Africa's wildlife. Mboone enjoys spicy masala chai, which I know nothing about, and has a unique family dynamic, being a mother to a human son and an adopted elephant orphan living in Kenya's Tsavo National Park. Did I pronounce that right, Mbone?
Yes, you did.
Okay, that was by luck. In any case, I referenced before that she'd been a guest on a previous episode, and we were just talking about that before we recorded. Incredible that was episode 20, and she'll be episode 81 by the time that this is out, and the last for this particular season. I had already wrapped up scheduling folks for this season, but she reached out to talk about her new upcoming book, or her book that's already out. So she wanted to share that. So this will be episode 81. But again, episode 20, that was March 2022 that we spoke about her other book. So it's just intense and amazing that it's been that long, but time flies. And um, it's great to catch up with people that have made an impact on you, or that have made that lasting impression. I've told her episodes was one of my favorite because just of her energy for life, her energy for conservation, just her experiences. So Mboone, thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you and congratulations, John. 61 episodes later. And also thinking about how all of this started and now how the impact that you're having with the podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems unreal. It seems unreal just sharing with you that was episode 20. It's amazing how it seems exhausting thinking about the difference between 81 to 20, but with these great conversations similar to the ones that I had with you and my other guests, it's just very energetic to know that people like you are out there doing great work, whether it's conservation, whether it's philanthropic efforts, the coaching, the leading, everything that they're all doing in their communities. It's just amazing. And that's what keeps me going in these episodes, is just learning what you're all about. So thank you.
Thank you as well.
So Mbone, just so, and obviously people can go take a listen to the other episode after they finish this one, but just so we can do it for people who haven't met you, haven't listened to the other episode. Can you tell me a little more about what you're doing today? Your bio is expansive. It's amazing in the work that you're doing, but what does your work look like in the day to day?
Yeah, so thank you for that. I first of all, a little background. My name is Mboone Umbima, as you said, originally from Nairobi, Kenya, born and raised there. And that's truly where the passion for conservation came from, because at a very early age, I spent a lot of time in our national parks and got to see nature. Almost on a monthly basis, like my parents would take us out to the parks and we'd see the wildlife, the elephants, the lions, the rhinos, all of it. And so it became a part of who I am. And as I've shared with you previously, when I went out to San Francisco when I was living there, I went to visit the chai bar. And the chai bar is where David Rio has this space where you can experience the David Rio brand, and they had the writing about the work that they were doing in Amboseli, Kenya, which was to help with the conservation efforts for the elephants. And at that time, I just knew I was home. I knew I had arrived. And so it's all connected, as I've shared with you in the past, because as you were reading through my bio, I was like, whoa. Even for me, I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it works, and it's all connected, and it's all about just aligning with what is needed when it's needed to push the work forward. So while it sounds like a lot, it's all connected. Like the wildlife, the conservation is connected to the chai, and even in the chai, I'm in a leadership position where I use my platform to do outreach and to mentor students, to support leaders who are in similar positions, and so on and so forth. But it's all connected.
Yeah, it's amazing when we can take that journey where it seems like everything is random. It seems like nothing makes sense, one following the other. But in the end, you look back and everything is connected. I mean, you were just talking about how you moved from the Bay Area in California to where you are now. And at first, that didn't make sense. I think you even said you were leaving kicking and screaming. But if you consider looking back now, you said that it was for the best and it's worked out.
Absolutely. Because when we made the decision to move at the time as a family, we were moving because there was another opportunity uh, to embark on, but I really did not want to leave the Bay Area because I felt that would impact my job at David Rio. But thankfully, that's not how our CEO saw it. And so we worked on a way to make it work. And so I'm
That's
still
amazing.
there. I'm still able to have the same impact that I had. I would even argue I have more impact because now I'm in a more central location. And the life in the Bay Area, especially for a working mother, is challenging. And so the reprieve from living there and now in the suburbs of Charlotte is a much better adjustment. So I'm happy.
So I see so many things that you share on social media. So what are some of the things that you're working on these days? Like what does that look like? Do you reach out to new partners, new collaborations? What does that look like in Bone?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So right now, there's a few things that are top of my agenda. One being with the David Rio Foundation. We've made a lot of progress since the last time I spoke to you. When we last spoke, we were just launching it. It had just we had just gotten our 501(c)(3) registration, and then I went out and did fundraising, and I'm so happy to report that now we have a ranger base in Amboseli. And the whole idea is that this ranger base is able to support the protection and the conservation of the elephants in the area under a program called Room to Roam that is led by the International Fund for Animal Welfare. So that was a big win for us to be able to build that ranger base. And then this year, now we're working with the women in the community to build to have an education program that helps them with how they create their artifacts that they sell to my clients.
Okay.
And then in turn, that then also helps with funding for the organization, so for the foundation. And so that's very exciting on that foundation front. Also, I'm sitting on a number of boards. So just last week, I was sitting at the on the board for the Society for Hospitality and Food Service Management, which is a new appointment for me, being on the main board, and I'm so glad to be on there and lend my voice as a woman of color, as somebody with the background that I do in marketing, conservation, uh, strategic planning, and organizational development. So I'm really glad that the society recognized my contributions to it, and then also allow has given me the opportunity to serve. So those are two big things.
Yeah, that's huge. So, Mbone, when it comes to you and the work that you're doing, and you shared so much about what you're doing today, what did your path into your career look like as an adolescent, maybe going into college or going into your career? What did those first couple steps into your career look like? And then can you kind of walk us briefly through what it's led, how it's led to today?
Yeah, I love that question because it always brings us to this point where, when you're starting out your career, you have these ideas of what it should be, and then how it unfolds for many of us is not what we thought
I
it
know.
would be.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because if you asked 22-year-old me, I was going to be um, I, I I don't even I can't even remember the term because I just read it off of some book and I thought it was really fancy and wonderful, and it had something to do with um, banking forensics, which I don't even know why that was a thought, but it was
Sounds
a
nice,
thought.
though. Sounds fancy. Yeah, I would probably think the same thing too when I was younger.
Exactly. But then when, of course, I got into college, I thought I was going to be a journalist, and that's what I pursued until I realized that being a journalist would probably start me out, in the field, and I didn't want to be in the field, especially when you think about like war zones and all of that. I was like, that is not where I will shine the most. And so then I thought, what should I do with that? And then I converted that into communications, and then later on organizational psychology. And once I was done with that, then I was like, okay, what does one do with organizational psychology? So I went into communications, but then over time I stopped trying to control the outcomes of how it was unfolding, and just started taking on opportunities as they came. And so long as it aligns with my excitement, so long as it aligns with how I feel about the impact it will have, then I move forward with it. And I think that is how I got to where I am today. Definitely not strategic planning on my end. It's more of following my gut and aligning with what is being presented.
So, Mbona, how did you end up in the States? Was it education? How did you leave your country to come to the States, work or part of education?
Yes, I came to the States. So the first time I visited the States was because my mom had some work going on in here, and so the first place I went to was Manhattan, which was amazing as a first introduction to the United States. But then later on, I applied to the University of Indianapolis, and I was accepted with a pretty good scholarship, and so that's how I ended up coming to the United States. And then just one thing led to another. Someone had told me to apply for the green card lottery, and I did, and then I won it, and it was just so unexpected, because I was very determined to go back to Kenya, and explore my career from there. But after some coaxing from my parents, I agreed to stay in the United States and see what it would have to offer. And I'm glad I made that decision because today I can say that both places are home. Kenya is home, the United States is home, and I am much more impactful in terms of pursuing my purpose by having both places as home. But that is how I got here.
Now, Mbone, what did your parents do for work? What was it? I think you had previously shared for me, with me, um, just what had led them to come to the States with you to New York. What was it about their careers, maybe, or the family, that influenced you in the way that it did?
Yeah, so both my parents were in the international nonprofit sector, and my dad was in the agroforestry as well as conservation information area. And so he worked for a number of organizations. I'm not sure the audience would know, but it would be ICRAF and ILRAD, which are big names in that world. And then also my mom was in the non-profit world, but for children. Her expertise was in children. And then also when you look at the rest of their siblings, many of them are in that nonprofit international organization world, and so that's where I thought I would end up. However, it influenced me deeply, such that ever since I began my career, I have always been involved in some level of philanthropy, whether it's the organization that I'm working for is giving back, or I'm running the programs that allow our teams to be able to give back. But it is just a part of my DNA, I think, and that's how they influenced my career direction.
And then, um, there's just so it's amazing when there's that kind of connection between parents and their kids, where what the parents do influences them so much. Um, so obviously, I always ask the question: does it make sense from your childhood, who you were as a person, what you saw, that you're doing the work that you're doing today? So how do you speak to that? How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, no, I love that question. And I love it because for the longest time, um, I thought that I was the one that ventured out and did something different because I work in corporate, whereas most of my family doesn't. But I started looking at the details of it. And I mean, a good portion of my work is communication and marketing. And if you look at, if well, my dad's work in the conservation was communication and information. And so I didn't really go far off from that. It was just a different setting. And then my mom, her strength has been in creating these organizations. She started the Kenya Alliance for Advocacy of Children's Rights from my bedroom when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And she'd have me help her type up the RFPs, and I mean, sorry, the proposals for funding and grant making and all of that. And now that's how I am supporting the David Rio Foundation, and that's what made me know that that is a possibility for our organization, for our company. And so there are just so many influences into who I have become today, even if on paper by title and by what I'm doing it looks different, but it's not that different. um, we're in the people business, and we are in the making the world a better place business.
Amen. And
Mm.
just storytelling. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is just sharing the stories of whatever community, whatever country, whatever the context may be. Is just it's all such passionate, powerful storytelling. And it's for you, it's come full circle.
Bingo, it has come full circle. That's it. And I feel, especially now, I feel like I'm in a good place where I've kind of understood how to align and flow with all of it. Um, and not to rush us into into the segment for the book that I've currently released, but that has been one of the tools that I have used in order to envision what's possible, and then see it unfold, and also how to release what no longer serves me so that I can continue to move forward, evolve, and grow. So yes, it's full circle, and in a very humbling way.
That's such a good point to make about how we move forward through life, through career, through mission, whatever it may be, gravitating towards what gives us energy and then releasing what doesn't. Because I think so many people, they hold on to things because they don't want to be seen as a quitter. Like they feel like I have to see this project out, which most times you do, or I have to see my tenure at this company out because I don't want to look like a quitter, or I have to see this relationship out to a natural end because I don't want to be seen as a quitter. But so many times we're tolerating things that it's powerful. I think when somebody says, I release things that just don't serve their purpose or don't align with my values or what I want out of life or for other people or my community. So I love that you bring that point up.
Yeah, no, that is so powerful. And I think for a lot of people, especially as they're growing, we especially the big buzzword with everyone is manifest, manifest, manifest. It's wonderful, yes, manifest, but then in order to manifest, you're pulling in from the same energies. Like you have an energy source,
Hmm.
and if you're still pulling what no longer serves you, you don't have energy to manifest new. And so that concept of releasing is so important, because then you're restoring the energy that you need in order to move forward. And that's something that I've intentionally been working on, to learn how to release, because like you said, there are parts of us that equate that with giving up. And and I like to look at it as making space, creating
Mm.
space, restoring energy, um, so that you
Yeah,
can move on to
utilizing that energy that you did have for something from the past,
correct,
utilizing it, reallocating energy, I guess.
correct. And what no longer serves you tends to be heavier than it was even when it was serving you.
Ah, that's
It
such a
ends
good
up
point.
drawing so much energy, like you'd be amazed. And it's like if the moment you let it go, you and I've heard this from so many people, especially in my coaching sessions, where it's like you release something, you truly release something, and then it's like you start moving at this really fast speed, and it's because what you were holding was heavy and you released it, so the inertia will push you forward.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is working out, this is working out, this is working out. Yes, because you let go, because you
Yeah.
released. Yes,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, certain things, even relationships, if you hold on for
yes,
too long, they become toxic and they become a toxic burden.
yes.
So it is like picturing carrying things. So it's like, what are your priorities? If you did the best you could with certain things and they're not working out, it's not about taking, taking, taking. It's back and forth. But like you
Right.
said, if they're no longer serving you, it's time to set that down and reapply that energy somewhere else.
Yes.
And Bonnie, before we jump to the book, what question that I've added that it should have been there from the get go? I don't think I asked in the last episode. I added it later in the sessions. What does leadership mean to you, especially great leadership? What does that mean to you? What does it
Yeah.
look like?
So I'm going to expound on it a little bit, if you don't mind, because that is a topic of great passion for me, and I want to, for me, why it's so important is that there's a study that I read about maybe 10, 15 years ago, and I truly hope that the state of the world has changed. But it was a Harvard peer reviewed survey that looked at all the leadership throughout the entire world. So from presidents to CEOs, but then there was some criteria there, and please don't quote me as it's been a long time. But the outcome of the study was that the amount of effective leadership throughout the world was less than 10%, which to me was quite shocking. Um, because if you think about, our countries, our companies, and all of that, and then we say that the number is less than 10%, then what is happening? But then at the same time, if it was more efficient, what could the world look like? And
Hmm.
so for me, that leadership is what it means to me is the ability to facilitate um, growth, to facilitate um, purpose, to facilitate the best of what is possible. So for me as a leader, I look at my team and I think, how can I help them be better? How can I equip them? How can I make them leaders so that I'm not the only one working towards a purpose, driving purpose. And so leadership to me, effective leadership, is something that is practiced both externally but intrinsically, and is purpose driven, and the purpose being that the impact of my leadership should help not only move the work forward, but then create
Mm.
others that come after me to continue the work.
I love that point. I love that point that it's not about, for instance, the work at hand, the project at hand, or the mission at hand, like today's work, but it is about that ripple effect of your community, your team. Like, are you making leaders yourself? Are you facilitating those conversations, that environment, empowering people to create that ripple effect? Because I'm sure you've seen it when you see a great leader, you're blown away. You know what I mean? It's not just a manager, it's not just somebody calling the shots, but it's somebody who just there, and it's not power. It's
Oh,
not power, it's not a label, it's not a title, but there's just something about a great leader when you see them at work and in action where you just want to rise to the occasion for them. You want to go to bat for them. You don't want to let them down. And it's nothing that they said to you, don't let me down. It's just something they inspire you. They inspire you
fire.
through and through. It's sad, but that study that you reference where that level may be 11% are effective, it's not surprising to me, because it's one thing for a manager or a supervisor or even a leader to provide the tools for you to get the work done and the mission's done and everything's achieved. That's great. But very rarely do you come across those leaders where they affect you so much that even when they're not around, you continue that drive. It becomes a matter of first wanting to do it for them, but then through constant practice, you kind of do the reps, and it becomes natural to you to want to do that for other people, to come through for other people. So even though that number is shocking, it doesn't surprise me. And everybody's going to have a different measurement of what success means. You know what I mean? For you and I, that success looks like creating more leaders, inspiring people to action. Where some people may just see it as the numbers were met for this quarter, that's good enough. So it's like that definition of leadership is so important to distinguish that inspiration piece.
Right. And one thing that I learned many years ago, I took this study, which is now hopefully going to become mainstream. It was a course that was offered through a partnership with Harvard, the Southern California school system, and two others, and it was called ontological and phenomenological
Wow,
um,
look at
uh,
nailed
leadership.
it.
Yes, leadership. And one of the big takeaways from for that from me was that when you create a vision that is much bigger than you, and then you work with your people to see that vision, and they take it on for themselves, now that's when you truly have created an impact, so that even if I'm not there, we know what we're working towards. And the example that I like to give with my coaching sessions or when I'm teaching is that, you know, Martin Luther King, I love giving this example. He painted a picture for something that was possible, but we had never seen it before. You know, I have a dream
Hmm.
that someday, you know, all of that. But he painted this picture, and it's not that we had seen it happening, but then the vision was so clear that we knew that we can work towards it. And now, even if we lost him, we're still walking towards that, achieving that dream and that possibility.
And what's crazy
um
is in that speech he says, and I may not be there, I may not be there or get there with you.
right.
So it's almost like he's outlining it. It will be work. It will be in the distant future, but this is what I envision. I have a dream of this, of that we can accomplish these things. That is huge that he says, and I may not be by your side, but this is what we have to work towards.
Right. And so for me as a leader, that is what I paint for my team. I say, listen, this foundation has to outlive us. And in order for this foundation to outlive us, then we need to set up the systems in place and make sure that this story, this narrative, what we're trying to create here, has its permanence. And that's where I'm borrowing from this study, this learning that I did, which is create something that's bigger than you and something that you could never achieve by yourself, and then together let's walk towards it.
I love that. Thank you so much for that example. All right, so let's jump into the book. Why
Yes.
don't you, in a couple minutes, I'm going to ask you to go through the previous book that we covered, but for now, let's go through the newer book. Can you
Yes.
introduce the book, how you came to want to publish the book and put this one out, and then we can kind of break down what's in the book.
Yes. So this new book is Reflect and Renew. Yes. And
I just got this in the mail this morning. That's not
wonderful.
bullshit. It is true. Went out to the mailbox. I'm like, what is this? And
That
there it
is called
was.
divine timing. Divine
Exactly. It was
timing.
perfect. It was perfect. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's Reflect and Renew. It's a New Year workbook. And how this came about is that over the last maybe 6 to 7 years, I sit down towards the end of the year and I reflect, and I go through it following a certain method. And first, I look at the year, and believe it or not, the thing that I do is I open my phone and I open the albums, and I look at the pictures all the way from January until December, because then that helps me jog my memory of what was done through the year and all of that. And then I start to look at it as, what did I do well, what did not serve me, what do I want to do more of, and what's possible for the future. So I go through that process, and then I think outside the box and I think, what's the biggest thing that I could envision for next year? Um, and I think without the boundaries of reality. I think
Hmm.
without the constraints that would normally um, be there, and I write that down, and then I narrow it into something that is achievable. And from there on, then I kind of, it's like I've installed in my mind what is possible and how to move towards it. And I've done this process for the last 6 to 8 years, like I told you, and I've had success with it. Not only have I had success with it, it's fun. It's fun to look through the year, and actually recognize what you have achieved, because I don't know if we give ourselves enough time to really allow ourselves to be in gratitude for what we have accomplished. We just keep moving, and so this is why I would stop and do this with intention, and reflect. But also I have found that through this process I'm also able to identify what it is I need to release and let go of, so that I can move forward into the year with more energy and be more purpose driven. So I've enjoyed the process, and then it just occurred to me that, how about, let me see how I can share this process with others, because not only is it a fun process, it is one that helps me feel like I am moving forward. I'm moving forward with intention, and I have clear goals that I want to accomplish for myself. And then when I accomplish those goals, it feels so great. It feels so wonderful.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to mention that word intention.
Yes,
Intent, intentional. Um, because I think so many of us go into the new year like, we're okay. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to achieve. I'm going to lose weight, whatever it is, like the usual BS that we feed ourselves. But it's something to really sit down. And I like the fact that it's not only looking forward to what you want, but really looking back to what you've achieved.
yes,
Because I think so many of us, we look to the future, to the horizon, to the goals, and if we don't meet those specific goals, we become disheartened, disillusioned, or sad, depressed, angry, whatever it may be, all the feelings. But there's just something about really sitting down, not just thinking about it, but sitting down and writing down what you're thankful for, what you've achieved. Because so many people, in my coaching sessions, when we go through their past, whether it's a recent past or their experiences because they want to move into a new job or take on new skills, it's amazing how often we don't stop and really look at what we've done. We know we've survived. We
Right.
know we've built a career. We know we're successful or on our way to being successful, whatever it may be. We know those general things, but we're really not good at looking back at what we've achieved, the steps that we've taken, the bravery that we've had, the assessment that we did throughout the year, the little changes. So I love that somebody would have something like this, and this is the main reason I wanted to squeeze you in for the last episode of this fiscal year. I was going to say of this year, because obviously it's a journal for that new year, so it gets people thinking in that way, that it's not just New Year's resolutions, one or two, but it's a plan. You have to be intentional about it. It can't just be a quick list that you're going to put in your phone, but an action plan.
Absolutely. And also to your point, when you're reflecting on what you've done well, you're tapping into an energy of what works for you. You're tapping into an energy of um, what drives you, what makes you thrive. And you want to create from that space. You don't want to create from a space of despair or desperation or those energy levels are heavier and don't move um, forward as fast. And so you want to create from a space where um, you associate good and achievement and positive things that have occurred to you. So
Huge.
that's one big piece of it. And then, as I shared before, the letting go is also very insightful, because for what hasn't worked, you can now come to the space of understanding that, yeah, maybe that's not for me, or maybe I just need to put this down for now. And you're giving yourself that permission to do that, and you're doing it with intention, so that it's not something that you just dropped the ball or just decided to ignore because it's not working. The more
Yeah.
intention and purpose you have, the more targeted you are.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I mentioned it a couple minutes ago, but I love that inclusion of letting go of things that haven't served you. And again,
Yes.
it's not that everything needs to serve you. You're giving a back and forth with your community, with relationships, with works, whatever it may be. It's a back and forth. You're giving, it's giving, you're getting. It's those relationships. It's all back and forth. But at a certain point, they don't. At a certain point, they seem to flow one way, maybe from you to the other person or the job, whatever it may be. So I love that this is a New Year's book, a New Year's plan. And again, it's not just looking forward, and it's not just looking back to account for what you're grateful for, but that energy piece that you mentioned in Bone, that's huge, because I don't think people think about that. I think they just think about in absolutes, what
Yes.
worked, what didn't. But you also have to look at your energy, like where are the people, where are the projects, where's like the volunteering, where are the relationships that draw that best out of you. um so I love that it clarifies, and it mentions, and you mentioned that energy. I just don't think people pay attention to the energy. They can think about toxic people, bad situations, but they should also think about, okay, who are the situations, who are the people, where are the environments that get me alive, I guess, for life, that wake me up, that bring me energy to give my best, that they can really channel themselves around those particular things. So I like the fact that it has people think in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I'll say about energy is there's a lot of definition that goes into this, but it's simply like where you're putting your effort, where you're paying your attention. Um, because you yourself have energy, and you could put it into something that moves fast or moves slow or is heavy or is light, but you can put that effort into whatever it is. And so that's how I define energy. And then when we talk about releasing what no longer serves you, it means that you're putting this energy, this effort in, or paying attention to this thing that is not moving whatever it is that you need to move forward. Like it is having a negative value, if you will. It is
Hmm.
taking energy. It's not there's some things that you can do that can um, multiply energy. For example, I could have a workshop for this same book and have 10 people who want to create purpose in their life, and we join, we have a meeting, and we walk out feeling there we walk out of there feeling so fantastic, and I've impacted these 10 people and they're going out with intention. That's a place where I have multiplied my energy. But then I can also try and revive a project that died 2 months ago, and I keep putting energy in there, and all it does is take the energy, but then
Mm.
nothing is happening as a result of me putting the energy in it. And so then I have to make that decision. Do I leave it so that I can conserve this energy for something else that I can either multiply or just add to? It doesn't matter. Or do I keep pouring into this black hole project that's just taking and not allowing me to have that impact? And so energy is, I mean, and then we could go, I could geek out and go into the physics of it all, but everything is energy, positive or negative. Everything is energy, and it's the flow of energy that creates. It's the flow of energy that creates. And so tapping into the laws of physics, then we can understand even how it relates to how we envision, create intent for ourselves.
Yeah, people shouldn't look at it as physical energy. It's not so much, it can be, but
It can be.
it's not just, oh, I'm tired or I'm not. I mean, it's like mental energy, it's relational energy. I mean, you probably have a list of Monet. Um, but and I think I was just writing about that this morning actually. Um, I think as you get older, you realize what that's all about, because when you're younger, you're following the script of life: go to college, get a degree, get a job, work hard, work hard, work hard until you get a promotion, and that's when you get your success. But we're never really taught about that energy, about that passion, that drive, that inner fire that we have, and whether or not what we're doing is channeling that and drawing it out of us. And unfortunately, most of us stick to that script of life. So I get a
Yes,
job, I get the family, that's it. They still feel like something is off, but they
yes,
can't put their finger on it. And I think it's that energy, and we don't know how to look at ourselves and analyze ourselves to really recognize what part of our life it is that's kind of off and that needs a little tweaking. So how did you, if you don't mind me asking, how did you come across that whole idea of energy? And you've said you look at it in your career, in your personal life. When did that first start to register how important that was?
so I mean, it's been over many years. Over many years, I would even say maybe about 15 to 20 years. But really, over the last 5 or 6 years, it has been about refining the language of how we speak about it. Because, like you say, it's there. Um, and we all have some level of understanding that it's there. And we relate to it almost in a very basic primary level. I'm tired, like you said.
Mm,
I'm not tired. But then as life is evolving, and we are getting more information and access to understanding how the whole thing works, right? Then we've been able to develop the language, and then with developing the language, we've been able to um, start to tap into the thought processes and the ideology of the energy. But what illuminated this for me really is um, looking at how I spend my time. Um, right now, like you said, I have seven things that I'm committed to, seven different things that I'm committed to. It's the David Rio Foundation, it's David Rio Chai and Tea, it's Lumo Leadership with our executive coaches. It's my coaching business. It's the writing, all of that. It's like I have to do all those things, and I have finite energy every day. When I wake up in the morning, let's say I'm at 100%. If you think about it like a battery, a phone battery, I'm at a hundred
mhm.
percent. The moment I open up an email, and if the email has, some negative stuff in it, like I'm being reprimanded for something, that might impact my energy and bring it down to maybe 90%.
Hmm.
And then I might go out in the day and meet with people, and I have a meeting that's very revitalizing and builds, new projects, and then that might push me up to 95 again. But it's always playing around, and it's just, it's always moving around. And then at the end of the day, you get home, you've done all these things, you picked up the kids, you cooked, you did all these daily things, and you're going to bed at 30%, if you will. And the act of sleeping then allows you to wake up again at 100%. I give this example because that's how I really thought and reflected on it over time. But then if you start looking at things like Newtonian physics and quantum physics in terms of energy. Newtonian is time space, meaning that it's the physical energy that you're using um, to make things happen. But I think what we're understanding now, which you touched on, which is the mental energy, the relational energy, and all of that, that is in an unseen realm. But the example I like to give is that yes, you can't see gravity, but you know it's there. And
Mm.
I think that is the same thing with energy. You may not be able to, well, in some cases you can see energy, but it is there. And the more powerful, subtle energies are not visible, which is this, mental energy and these other pieces. And coming back to this New Year workbook, is like if you have the opportunity to think about the things you want to put your energy towards, then again, the example I give is it's like you've installed that for yourself in your brain and in your knowledge base, in your conscience. And
It's
so
like a
the
part of your operating system.
correct, correct. But yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
No, no, no,
then
it's all right.
that
Hey,
is
and no, but it all made sense, and I love the example you give of waking up in the morning, because some people may have that example and say, I start at 100, then I'm going slowly down, then certain things deplete my energy quicker than others. But I
yes,
always saw it as it's just going down. But
no,
again, you brought that example where if you go into a certain meeting where with the right people and it's got the right energy and you're talking about possibilities and opportunities in the future and what you can do, you can leave that meeting and it added 10 points back. So I think that's like the prime example of this energy thing. Is it's not just a constant down, but what are those things that deplete your energy and what are those things that replenish it?
yes,
I gave an example this week where maybe I felt some anxiety, and for me, anxiety is just energy that needs an outlet. It
yes,
doesn't necessarily have to be toxic or negative, anything like that. It's just that I need some kind of outlet, whether it's music, whether it's a conversation, whether it's reading, whether it's working out. So it's this energy that's there. It's not bad, but if I don't do anything about it, it just stagnates and then it becomes toxic because it's wearing on your body. So I'm taking that energy, let's just say it's negative, right? Just for simplicity purposes, and I work out, I use up that energy and then I leave energized with a right kind of energy. So that goes back to that battery idea of taking something that is negative in energy and shifting it to something that's positive. So I love that example. I'm always going to think of that battery example of something that depletes it and then being around something that replenishes it. I think that provides a great visual for somebody that, listen, you don't have 100 and then it's just all downhill. When we talk about these conversations, when we have these conversations, what are those things that deplete and replenish? And I think that's just, I love that example. That's perfect.
yes. And the thing is, energy is not polarized. And that's where you're pointing to as well. It's not polarized, it's energy. So you can put it towards something negative, you can put it towards something positive, you can it's malleable, but it's not polarized. And so, we always throw around, "Oh, that's such negative energy." um
Mm.
no, it is us putting negativity to that energy.
Yeah, that's why I hesitated calling it negative energy, because it just doesn't make sense. It's something
Yes,
that feels off, but it's not negative. It's just, for me, I think it leads to an impatience that I should do something with
right.
this energy. So it's that impatience. You
It's
know how it
trapped
is feeling
energy, is how I
impatient.
think about it. Like trapped energy that needs to move. So it's like you took some energy and then you compressed it. And so now it needs
Yes.
to move. And so you can
Yes.
either throw it into something positive that and revitalizes you, or you could go out in the streets and punch somebody. I mean, it's still the same.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
same
No,
energy.
yeah, that's another great visual is, I mean, for me, anxiety is like that. Again, that energy, and it's, what am I doing with this energy that I have? If I leave it there, it's just going to become stale, stagnant, and then it gets worse. But if I can do something to just kind of redistribute it, reanimate it so it's something better. I
Yeah.
could talk about this all day. And then you brought in the physics, and that's just a completely different area.
Yes.
And Bonnie, when it comes to the book, can you break down how you organize the book? Like what kind of journey do you take the reader on when you're going through the journal?
Yeah. So thank you for that. The way I do it, so we start off with again looking through the the year. And the easiest way I have found, at least over the last 3 years, is just opening my phone and looking at the albums because all the photos are there. Every
That's
time something good happens, you snap a
Yeah.
picture. So yeah, that I found, because previously I would look at my calendar, um, but yeah, the calendar doesn't necessarily record everything. I find that I've recorded everything in the pictures, and so I go through the pictures and then I note through that, and the book does, I intentionally have questions that allow you to pay attention to what it is you need to pay attention to. And so like once you've done the data dump, if you will, of all the things that have happened through the year, we look at it at different lenses. It's your personal life, your career, your physical health, your mental health, your learning. Like what are you learning that's new? What are you doing for creativity? What are you doing in community, social, your social involvement, giving back. And so you start to outline those things, and then you realize, okay, yes, maybe I need to volunteer more, or oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I spent all this time, supporting this cause. I guess I'm not doing so badly, but it makes you look at all those facets of your life. And then also I ask questions in there that allow you to point, like what was the biggest risk you took this year, what who are the three people that were most impactful in your day to day this year, because then that helps you pay attention to where you're getting your energy, because you could find that, oh, the person that you identified is not somebody who is always on your side, and then you can question that. Or you can find that they really support you, and you probably need to tap into that a lot more, considering that now you have become present to the fact that they are having that impact on your life. And so we're asking those questions, we reflect on the year, and then we get into this space where we there's intention of letting go of what no longer serves you. And throughout all these areas, I have used personal psychology to help guide the definitions as well as the questions. So in the letting go exercise, I discern, like I define what forgiveness is, what letting go is, and where to look for that. Um, with the hopes that it allows you to truly release um, those things that you need to release. And then we then move on to the new year. And that's the part where I say we look at, like, okay, we start by playing. So we explore. It's like, what is this big picture look like if
Mm-hmm.
if if you had no limitations. And then now we start to hone in on, okay, now that you've thought about this big picture without limitations, what can we hone in on? Like, what can we say, like, for this coming year, what personal goal do you want to achieve? So like I've already gone through the process this year because I needed to prove my book and and all of that. And so, like, for example, for me, The my one of the personal things that I want to accomplish next year is to learn how to play golf, because I live on a golf course and I don't know how to play golf. so so I've
That's
written
a good
that
one.
down. Yeah, and it's for me it's a win-win, because it also helps with the physical health, walking around, and also community and getting to know my neighbors and all of that. But then it helps you identify certain goals that you want to accomplish, and then it also helps you to choose with intention things that you will allow yourself to be able to do. And then we end sort of with gratitude and self declarations for what the year will entail. And like I said, these questions are pulled from just general psychologies. I was looking at some of Young's work, as well as Wayne Dyer and a few other of the big names in the psychology, so that I was looking at what motivates us, what inspires us, like where do we get fulfillment from. And because I'd gone through the process, but then now I wanted to be able to make sure that I was backing it up
Mm,
with credible knowledge, like what we've come to understand um within our world. And so that's it. That's
yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, and I hope people do buy the book and just kind of get a sense for who they've been and where they're going. It sounds like common sense. It sounds like everyday practice. And people may say, I do celebrate my wins, but that's not enough. I do know what I want to go into, or what kind of position I want to go into, or what I want to be when I grow up, but that's not enough. It's amazing how forensic this can get, not to a tedious every last detail, but just in terms of really thinking about it and breaking it down. So I think it's a valuable tool.
Absolutely. And some of the things that I think the biggest gift that you can give yourself is the time with yourself in silence. um Many people, although it's becoming more popular, many people don't like to be alone with themselves in silence. But if you're
Mm.
alone with yourself in silence, and it is with intention, and you have this guide with you that allows you to look in a meaningful way, then it's actually, again, like I said, it's fun. It allows you to tap into the joy of being human, and this human experience. And I think usually the fear with the silence is because it's unmitigated. It doesn't have purpose. You're silent, and then everything just starts
Oh
talking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All that the mental chatter starts, and
Yes.
it's from what I've learned just from talking to all of you, my guests, your personal journeys, moments of reflection, moments of challenges, moments of success. Um, Oftentimes it comes up, the moments of challenges, looking back to, say, your childhood, looking back at your traumas, your disruptions. Um, and then when you start thinking about that and tracing your behaviors and where they came from, when you look into yourself, it can be scary. It can be scary. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing that, or as comfortable as I should. Um, but I mean, I don't know. Life is about, yes, achieving for others, for your community, for your family, whatever it is that you want around you. But at the same time, I think it's a gift to know yourself. It's a gift to know yourself, and it's freeing and liberating to really get to a point where you're doing what you want to do, what's important to you, getting rid of what you don't want in your life anymore. I think a lot of people, again, they go through the motions of the script, but they don't really get to, I think a lot of the frustration I've seen with my clients is they don't really get to what it is that works for them, what they're about, their values. I think they give up. They do it out of the goodness of their heart to be a team player, to not rock the boat of their community or their workplace, but I think they give up real easily on who they are and what they want. And I mean, again, that script of school, this is what the workforce needs from you, this is what the economy needs from you, this is what your family needs from you, this is what your community needs from you. But they tend to set aside themselves. That's the expense of looking at those things, is kind of giving up on who they really are and what they really want to achieve for themselves.
Yeah, and so I want to bring on a topic that could be really extensive, but I'll try and summarize this. But there's there's this thinking which I call ego driven thinking. And it by ego driven thinking, I don't mean boastful or
Hmm.
being obnoxiously prideful. It's not that. It's the ego, which I my own definition of the ego is the mechanism that allows us to have this human experience. But in my thought process, the ego was never designed to be a thinking or sense making entity. It is purely there for survival. And the moment you hand over your thinking to the ego, it can be chaotic and messy. And yes, you may achieve fame or recognition or all these other things, but then it's based out of fear, because the ego is there to just make sure you stay alive. And that is the
Mm.
view that it looks at. Like, it's like, will this kill me or will this keep me alive? Period. There's no expansion beyond that. And if you're looking at life through that lens, then you're a hammer. Everything is just da da da, right?
Yeah.
But then if you allow yourself access to your own higher conscience, your own higher being, some people might say it's the soul, whatever it is that you will call it, and then that in conjunction with your ego, now that can allow you to align to be purpose driven. And tying that back to this book is like, when you allow yourself that silence, and then it's guided, so that you're not just all over the place. And especially if you're not practiced in tapping into your higher conscience, then this will guide you into creating something fun for yourself. It really is the experience of yourself, but then guided,
Mm.
and then also allows you to create what you want.
Yeah, I think with everything that happened during the pandemic, obviously there was like the great resignation. There were people quitting their jobs, seeing that their jobs, you don't know if this is the end of the world. And meanwhile, you're shackling yourself to a job that really isn't for you. It doesn't align with what you want. Only so many people could afford to quit their jobs, walk away, what have you. But I think the pandemic did wake us up to the fact that you really need to consider what's important to you. That you could get, it was the perfect example. You could get up in the grind, the 9 to 5, the commutes, the deadlines, all that. And then when push came to shove and we didn't know if the world was going to end or how dire that situation was going to be, people were like, wow, this job, why am I doing this for this job if it's not really what I want, if it doesn't call to me, if it's not, it doesn't align with my values, my morals, what have you. Um, I think it set the stage for something like this to really look at what's important for you. And I hope people don't lose those lessons. If they did see them and heed them, I hope we don't fall back into our old ways of achievement, success, deadlines, just those external check boxes. I hope we don't just go back to that and forget about those internal needs that we realize that we, in fact, do need to take into account. So hopefully it's a good reminder to not give up on what it is you want, because we're human beings, we're creatures of habit, but we could be persuaded to step away from them so easily.
Right. And I think that, to your point, from an organizational standpoint, and then tying it back again to the energy of things, um, when you show up to a job, I read this years ago, the worst employee is the one that quits and still shows up the next day, meaning that they quit the job, but then they're coming to collect their paycheck. But
Yeah, they're checked out.
exactly. And if we tie it back again to the energy, so if I have my office, my organization, I have 40 people that work for me, and 10 people come in with that attitude, that energy, what am I accomplishing as, like, if you look at how I'm accomplishing what we need to do as a company, I'm not anywhere near optimum, not anywhere near what I would define as a successful business. And that's because I have people amongst me that are not aligned to who they are, don't find their joy. And in a perfect world, they don't need to be there. They should go where they find their joy. And the people who join my organization should join me because they find joy in what it is that we do. And I'm not saying that, there's no hard days or challenging things. In fact, that is part of the fun. But you really do need to go where go where you thrive, go where you feel that you add value, go where you feel that you are aligned with what is happening there. And I think that's what I call one of the COVID linings, which was, some of the teachings that we had as a result of pausing and reflecting on what really matters to us. But how can you say or show up with what really matters to you if you haven't examined it?
Yeah.
And that's what I hope the my book does as well, is just allows you to pause and look at what matters to you. And if you don't know what matters to you, then you will find it as a result of going through this exercise. But if you do know what matters to you, then maybe now you can be more intentional of about creating more of that for yourself. And the more we have people who are passionate and show up to work fully expressed, the more we move towards the kind of world, the kind of community, the kind of companies that we want to experience.
And Mbone, when it comes to your book, I'm curious in writing it. I know it's a practice that you say you've used for years. But even in writing this, putting this together, is there anything that shifted in your mindset on this, or something you realized, or something that you tweaked in your thinking about such a journal at the end of the year? Is there anything that changed in you just from putting out this book?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things, because as you said, I've done this practice for myself, and I've done it from a place of having the knowledge of coaching and how, how we think, how personal psychology works. But then I had to now then think to myself, how does somebody who doesn't have that participate in this meaningfully? And so then I had to refine the questions that I was asking. And that's why, like I said, I went back to, like, even Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like, how
Mm,
do we feel when we are self-actualized? And so then what would we be looking at when we're self-actualized? That's where the mental health, the spiritual health, like those sit in different classifications. But then it was guiding the kind of questions that I'll ask and what areas of life that we would look at. um and then, like, inner motivations, that's where the Jungian theory comes in. Because you see, when I was doing it on my end, I'm not thinking about it from that perspective. But when I thought about it being a useful tool for others, then I had to expand my thinking and expand how I was framing these questions, so that they can accomplish what it is that I hope they accomplish, which is insight, to reflect, and then the insight in order to create anew for what serves you. So that was a big piece. The other piece was, I love to, well, I don't know if love is the correct word. I have developed the habit of thinking outside the box. I, the reason why I said love is not the correct word is because it makes me uncomfortable. But it's a habit that I have developed, and is almost second nature to me. But I recognize that this is not how many people live their lives, like pushing themselves outside their comfort zone. And so figuring out how to capture that for others, to help others think outside their own comfort zone, was a little bit of a challenge. But I think I figured out how to do it by the questions that I'm asking. And that's where it comes to like thinking without the limitations. If failure wasn't an option, what would you accomplish? But then what that allows us to do is to tap into what is possible and actually tap into the lives that we envision for ourselves. Because I think one thing that I think you encounter with your coaching, and I do as well, is people come to you because they're thinking, okay, what next? Or is this it? Like, is this really it? And how to ask that question without being in a coaching session is what I was trying to accomplish. So I had to wrap my head around that. Um, and so going back into my books and really reading and then cross-referencing so that the product is credible, but then still fun, because I wanted to make sure that we are still keeping it fun and easy and simple and light, because there's a tendency for me specifically when I start to look at the academics, then I become very clinical, and I didn't want that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because obviously, there's so much research out there on different topics across different industries and fields. But yeah, it's you want to maintain that healthy balance between the technical and the everyday, like everyday language, everyday understanding. Because I mean, we're complex, but we like things simple. We like things
Right,
straightforward. What I
right.
wanted to ask you though, Mbone, what when it comes to you saying thinking outside the box, where does that come from for you? Where did you learn that? Where did you pick that up? How do you think that evolved, this idea of you just not wanting to do things or think about things in their standard way, but instead step outside of the norm?
Yeah, so there's a phrase, and I know I used it in the other podcast, and I know I used it in the other podcast because I use it in everything, which is this: everything that you desire that's not in your current experience resides outside your comfort zone. Otherwise, you'd already have it. And
Yeah.
so if I'm looking at my life and saying, you know what, I wish I had a new house. Well, how would I get that new house? I would have to do something differently than what I'm doing today, because I can't do the same things every day and expect different results. And so just understanding that intrinsically is what has helped me maintain that. But how it started to develop for me, ironically, is because, one of the reasons is when I moved to this country, and the first time that I truly experienced being, let's say, a foreigner in this country, um, I realized that I am outside the comfort zone. Like me, my, who I am is outside the comfort zone. And
Mm,
so then how do I create a space where I am the outside the comfort zone, but then there's space for me to be there as well. And that means, again, doing things differently, not showing up the way, quote unquote, everyone is showing up. I come, triple prepared. I come with my ideas, and I'm brave enough to share these ideas in spaces that they may be new to. But it's a muscle that I have chosen to develop, because as a result of being different, um, sometimes I have been treated differently, or assumptions are made about who I am based on my quote unquote difference. And so I have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And the way to
mm.
do that is the way to build that muscle is to just take on uncomfortability, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up just your immigrant story, right? When you take that leap from a different country, your home country, to somewhere else. I didn't do that, but my parents did that, and I think even, and I've talked to a few other colleagues whose families are recent generation immigrant families, or they're immigrants themselves, and there's just something about that mindset where these people came to this country, leaving everything that they knew. So it's like once you get here and you assimilate to the ways, career, college, what have you, I think it's like explorational DNA that we have, where okay, we'll do the norm stuff, the script, the school, the career, but that can't be it. I really do think it's just this gene, this DNA that's inside you to just keep exploring, keep pushing, that our families, you yourself didn't come here just for mediocrity, I guess. that,
Right,
that
right,
that's not, we're not getting here and stopping at a script. We're going to
right.
keep going. We're going to keep pushing beyond. So I love that you bring up that part because I think that's key and it's very important.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up that the DNA, because I was reflecting on this a few months ago as I was talking to my mom, because I think I have recognized that everyone that you see that is successful, if you start looking at their gene line, you will see similar traits. It is not by accident. And when I look at my own heritage, both my parents came from villages outside of the city, pre-colonial Africa, pre-colonial Kenya. Like my great grandparents did not know British rule, whereas my grandparents did. But they I say that because when wherever they came from, they moved to the city and tried that new life. And my grandparents also moved from where they were from, because my grandparents um, migrated as well over the years, meaning that they moved. So I don't think it's a coincidence that I am here today in these United States. And then when I look at my mother and her sisters, and my uncles and what they have accomplished, and where they are in the world today, it is no mistake that I am where I am today, because it has been modeled for me. I have seen it. It is something I know, but then it is within me intrinsically, to explore. And I find that very fascinating, because while we think through, what is possible for us, there's some things that I think um, come with us, who we are, what makes us who we are, the specialness of each individual person. And when you align with your purpose, you become much more powerful within your own world for yourself and others. So you become a better mother, a better leader, a better manager. But that's when you align with who you are and your purpose.
It's amazing. And I know you just put this one out there, so it's a recent publication. So I'm not going to rush you about what the next book is about, but it's fair to ask you that because this is something you do all the time. You just published it in a book. So, because you're just putting thoughts that you've had every year into a book and customize it and put it out there for everybody, I feel I can ask what what do you think your writing is going to take on next? Do you have any general idea? You don't have to go into specifics, but any ideas where you want to go next in your authorship?
Yes. So great question. And I have been working on a book about change. And it's very exciting, and I'll be speaking about it at the Purpose Summit next year in Charlotte. And so the book better be out by then. But it's about change, and choosing change. And I always tell people, if you don't choose change and change chooses you, usually the latter is uncomfortable. When
Yeah.
change chooses you, it usually doesn't feel that great. And so what would happen if you chose change? Because if you choose change, then you can participate um,
Hmm.
with intention, by choice, with what is happening for you. And I look at change both from a personal perspective as well as an organizational perspective. But in essence, it's all the same. And you'll find that a lot of the work, I make it consumer ready, but then I also have the lens from an organizational perspective. But change is my next big thing. Choose change, don't let it choose you.
Mboone, and I didn't get to ask you this last time. I don't know why I didn't include this question. Quick question. What book has inspired and made an impact on you?
Ooh, so many. Oh my gosh.
Well, which one? There's got to be one that jumps out, maybe slightly ahead of all the others.
Yeah, I mean the one that's coming to mind right now, and I usually recommend this to all the young women or women who are at a point where they're asking these questions like, what next? Is this it? Is Glennon Doyle's Untamed, by Glennon Doyle, because she without spoil well try not to spoil it, but she really looks at okay, when you're following the script, this is what it looks like, and when you're following that script, you can find that you become really miserable because you're not really fully expressed. And then she talks about
Mm,
her own journey, and how she moves towards being fully expressed and being authentic about how her life is, and she touches on everything from the success, the fame, the her marriage, her divorce, her new partner, and the depression she suffers from. Like, it's all encompassing, it's very real. And I think every woman should read that book for sure, and men, don't get me wrong, but I think it will resonate with a lot of women.
perfect.
Yes.
And then in wrapping up, Mbone, is there anything that you want to share about what you're up to these days? Anything that you want to put out there and share with this audience?
Yeah. So I think that if you'll allow me, it's the David Rea Foundation. Um, just we are hopefully going to be able to launch our website early next year, and so you'll be able to see everything that we're doing on the ground with the conservation efforts, and I welcome everyone to support it. As I didn't mention this time, but I mentioned it last time, we name our chai after endangered species, and then we work with the International Fund for Animal Welfare to fund those programs. And the big program we have going on right now is Room to Roam, and Room to Roam is an IFO led initiative that is creating more room for the elephants. Elephants are big mammals, and in order to keep them safe, they need more room. And we're working across 12 sub-Saharan countries within different clusters to expand that space. And as we expand that space, we want to make sure that that space remains safe for the animals. And the elephant is kind of the animal at the top of the ecosystem that allows the other animals to thrive. Um, because, like when they go through a forest and they tear down the old flora and fauna that allows the other little animals to be able to move through that, get their food, trap things. I mean, it's so fascinating. But then the elephant is really leading the way in this um, in this project. And so Room to Roam is near and dear to me. And as soon as we launch that website, the support from everyone would be great. And then the other thing that I did touch on is this conference next year, the Purpose Summit, where we're pulling together purpose driven brands that are making a difference. And I'll be speaking there about change. Um, and then finally, always Lumo leadership, where parenting and work intersect, where we are creating solutions for working parents
Mm.
to be able to thrive and not be left behind as a result of being part of the workforce. So those are the things that are on my heart. And that's what's important to me right now, and that's what I ask for support with.
And two more things briefly. I don't want to hold you too much longer that I want to ask about. A, if you could just give people a breakdown just of what your gratitude journal, the other book that we covered, what that's about before they jump into the other episode, which I hope they will.
Yes.
So if you could just speak to that, and then also an update on your sons.
Yes. So wonderful. Thank you for those questions. So the gratitude journal, that came up as a result of 2020. Early in 2020, I think you remember when you put on the TV and it was just death count after death count after death count, and it became very depressing. And for me, in order to survive it, and we were all so isolated, I started looking at what am I grateful for. And for whatever reason, I chose to do it for 29 days straight. I think I may have read it somewhere, like do something for 29 days. And I know it's not even the number for forming a habit, but it was the number that stood out to me. And so I did it for 29 days. And every evening I'd sit down and write 10 things that I'm grateful for. And as a result of doing that practice, I started to feel a little more grounded. And so
Hmm.
I started writing literally the 29 days out for my friends, so that they could join me in the journey. And then I'd ask them, yeah, how do you feel after doing this for 10 days, 15 days? And they'd say, yeah, I feel better. And so I started looking into it, and then I created the journal so that I don't have to handwrite it for other people. But then also
Yeah.
creating the journal allowed me to then have this larger platform to share this practice, with others. Look how paying attention to what you're grateful for, um, allows you to see what's working in your life. And when you can move from the space of what's working in your life, you can attract more of the good in your life. And so this is what I discovered for myself and wanted to be able to share it with others, but then also help them to cultivate that habit of looking for things to be grateful for, to be thankful for. And so that's how it came about, and it's still available, on Amazon. So is this new book. And the link that's shared there, the link tree with the Mboone Umbima, has links to all of it, to the conservation work, to the David Rio Chai, to the Lumo leadership. All of it is in that, um, link that we have up there. And then the two sons. So I always tell people that I have two sons, and one is a human child who is now 7, and he's doing very well. He just wrote his own first, comic book, and it's called
Nice.
yeah, it's called, Amazing Bob. And so I
Why
am going to
not?
be helping him publish that. And it's such a funny book because he's really writing about the things that he enjoys. And I taught him about copyright and all of that. So he's renamed everything that he likes in the book. Like, for example, he says that he went to a Nintendo game, conference, and he changes it to Game Tendo. And
He
but
doesn't
it
want to be
is so
sued.
funny.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it is so funny. And so I'm going to be helping him publish that. But he is doing well in second grade. And then the other, son is Ambo, who is the elephant that, my son Trevor adopted when he was 2. And it my goal with, helping Trevor adopt him was so that he started to learn very early about conservation and the African wildlife. And so now Ambo is 7, which means he's really big, and so he's no longer in the orphanage that we, adopted him from. He was moved to the Savo National Conservancy, which can take on, the bigger elephants. And so at least every year we are able to go to Savo and see Ambo. But
That's
ironically,
amazing.
Ambo was was rescued from Amboseli, which is where I have my projects, with David Rio.
See?
But that's
Full
how they are.
circle.
Full
Full
circle.
circle. That's amazing.
Full circle. Yes.
Bone, so thank you for sitting down with me and going over your book, Reflect and Renew, a New Year workbook. Um, I love that you focus on that gratitude with the first book, that 29-day period, and then especially, there's no difference between this year and next year, right? It's on paper
Right.
that you see that difference, but you know how we are. Like the start of the week is Monday. There's no difference between today and tomorrow, but the start of the week is Monday. The start of the year is January 1st. You know how programmed we are to think that way. So it's even if today was December 31st and tomorrow January 1st, you couldn't tell going through the days, but seeing it on paper is just something about, okay, this is a fresh start. This is where I can start anew. But I love that you have us look backwards too, Because I always say as well, like you got to look back to help build forward. So thank you for putting out those books and thank you for sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and explore these topics. And thank you for the opportunity to come back and share this new work. And I hope that
Absolutely.
with the next change book, we'll be back and we'll talk about change and
Absolutely.
choosing
Open
change.
invitation anytime you want.
Thank you, John. I truly appreciate it.
And if there's anything that I might have missed, anything that I should have asked, please let me know. I'll reach out to Mboone and see if there's anything that she can provide, any insight she can give us. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.